when I received the email that told me I had won the award and it asked me to present at the Discovery Days. I misread it and I thought it said, it asked me to be present at the Discovery Days. So I was labouring under that delusion until 12:30 today. So if this talk is not as slick as it should be, that's the reason. I'm sorry. So hopefully I can give you a little flavour of some of the areas that I've been working in. So one of the areas that I actually worked in with a young researcher, this is Dana Hutton. Dana actually came to spend some time in my lab as part of her science baccalaureate. At the time she was a sixth form pupil at Grove Academy in Broughty Ferry. And as part of that project, we together developed an event to help educate and inform the public about celiac disease. So this is Dana at one of the times that we gave the event as part of Dundee Science Festival, this time at Dundee Science Centre. And this was our setup, so we have a number of components to the event. So we have a sort of experiment that people can do in test tubes. It's designed principally for school children, but actually we had quite a number of adults doing it as well. And it's really all about exploring the problem with celiac disease, which is basically an autoimmune condition that actually rather a high number of people have, and quite a lot of them actually don't realise they have it, in which they have a reaction to gluten, which is a component found in wheat, so in things like bread, cakes, biscuits, etc. So our experiment is to look at breadcrumbs, and we have a system where kids can basically put things in the test tubes. They add breadcrumbs, and we have breadcrumbs that are from normal bread and from gluten-free bread. And basically they see a reaction when they test a mock sample from an individual with celiac disease when that sample comes in contact with the gluten-containing bread. I emphasize it's a mock experiment, it's not hazardous, but it gives them that experience and understanding that gluten-containing bread in a celiac disease patient will cause a problem, an inflammatory problem. So they seem to really enjoy the fact that they can get dressed up as a scientist, they can don their coat and goggles and gloves. And we had all age groups. This possibly wasn't the youngest one, actually. And yeah, so I think they really enjoyed that. A couple of brothers here. As another part of this event, we had a sort of matching game where or a game where you had to separate out the foods which contain gluten and from those that didn't. And sometimes it's actually not as obvious as you might think. And so again, that was to educate people that for people with celiac disease, it's actually quite challenging, or it can be, to always recognise which foods would be safe to eat. In addition, to really hammer home actually what the experiment would be if you were testing someone in a laboratory, we had an explanation here of the ELISA that would be done, and we have the actual plate at the top, and then a depiction here explaining of the different components that would go in there to test the blood of someone that has this condition. We not only presented this at Dundee Science Centre, but we also went out into various community centres in Mingus Hill and Ardler, and we also had an enjoyable Saturday morning in the Overgate shopping centre. That was quite an interesting group of people that came along, but it was good fun. As part of this, we made posters, so we really, if people wanted to spend more time at the stand, they could read around it. So we had a couple of posters. We also, to try and engage the kids a little bit more, we made some little flyers, and I've actually got some samples here if anybody is interested and wants to pick them up at the end. So this one employs some Lego men to tell people a little bit about the genetic side of celiac disease, and some ideas that we've been pursuing in the lab about how we might try and better diagnose celiac disease without having to use blood, possibly using something like saliva instead. We made some little pamphlets, some targeted specifically at kids for them to find out about what the issues were with celiac disease. So really what the problem is here is that if we were to look at the linings of the gut in a normal individual, there would be finger-like projections, and so we have a big surface area of the gut which is there to absorb nutrients from food. In a person with untreated celiac disease, basically those villi are lost, and so we have much less opportunity to absorb nutrients, and that can be a big part of the problem. As part of this, we wanted to try and get some idea of how successful our event was, and that's a little bit challenging if you have young children. So we employed this system here where we had some arrows, whether you agreed or disagreed, or you liked the event or didn't like it, and kids could put a sticker where they felt their opinion was on the scale here. We also had a rolling sort of video that explained a little bit more about the immune system in a way that was understandable by kids. So this was the results that we got from those stickers. So we can see that actually pretty much all of the kids enjoyed it, and they actually reported an increase in what they understood about celiac disease after doing the event. So moving on to another example of an event that I've run. This is the Saturday morning masterclass, and the one that I have been running is the Whodunit. So basically we have kids around about 11 to 13, that sort of age, and they come along, and this is what I tell them. A crime has been committed. And basically Professor Coates had come in early that morning to find that his office was in a real mess. There were books and papers everywhere, the chairs were overturned, there was a broken pot that had some spare cash in there that he'd been, I don't know why he had it there, it was smashed and it had gone. So here's the crime scene, okay. So I show this picture to the kids, and they have to tell me what kind of pieces of evidence that there might be there. So I don't know if you can spot anything. We've got some chocolate, some powdery stuff, the broken pot, there's an empty pop bottle, and some spilt paint. So basically, we have a situation where there's some blood on the broken pottery, and we can use that to extract the DNA. We can examine the white powder, we can look at the sticky fingerprints, we can look at the footprints, and we can also look at teeth imprints in the chocolate. So these are just the areas that we actually then go off and explore with the kids. And we have 4 suspects, who are the technicians that actually helped me with this. So we're looking for a sweet-toothed burglar who's been drinking the pop and eating the chocolate. So they basically go through a series of experiments, analysing DNA, powder analysis, etc., and they sort of work out by looking at, or ticking off in this grid, which is the suspect. So it's quite good fun. And then I have to tell them it's all just a joke. But and then the final area I wanted to mention was this sort of interplay between science and art, which is an area that I am very interested in. And over the years I've been involved in organising a number of exhibitions or competitions that then went into exhibitions that was designed really to showcase biomedical research at the University of Dundee. So one of the first image exhibitions and competitions I set up was the Images of Medical Science back in 2005, and this at that time was just based in the medical school. And really it was open to all staff and postgraduates in the medical school to generate images that reflected their research. And this was the winner in 2005, which I think is hopefully it's coming out, using digital visualization techniques taken from MRI, producing this lovely image of the kidney. This is an image showing receptors that would be present on neurological tissue in the brain, possibly. This was a couple of years later. These are a type of cancer cell. I think the projections are absolutely incredible, and the interactions that those tumour cells have with one another. But also strikingly beautiful as well, I think. And this is a clever image. Each of the individual images here are of a particular cell undergoing a process called mitosis, which is where they split into two to form two daughter cells. And it's been organised in a way to represent chromosomes. In 2009, we kind of expanded that competition and started to involve researchers from life sciences as well, and we then called it Visions of Discovery, and that's run a couple of times as well. And this is an image from 2009. This one shows an embryo of a particular type of worm used very frequently in research. And it's showing mitochondria, which are the sort of powerhouses, the energy houses of the cell, in the blue, and the cell nuclei that contains the genetic material in red. Here we have a cross-section through the gut of the mouse, and I kind of think that these villi here, in fact the same villi that I was talking about with celiac disease, they really look like a sort of frayed material almost. And then a later version of this competition in 2013, this is an image taken from the ovary of the fruit fly. And the final image takes me right back to the gut again and the villi, and this is a really striking image of human villi that we can see here. So in celiac disease, these would all be lost. So thank you very much for your attention.